Chapter 8, A Talk at Home. On Sunday morning, Mr. and Mrs. Arable and Fern were sitting at breakfast in the kitchen. Avery had finished up and was walking upstairs to look for his slingshot. "Did you know that Uncle Homer's gosling had hatched?" asked Fern. "How many?" asked Mr. Arable. "7," replied Fern. "There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton that she didn't want it anymore, so he took it away." "The goose did what?" asked Mrs. Arable, gazing at the daughter in a weird, worried look. "She told Templeton she didn't want the egg anymore," repeated Fern. "Who is Templeton?" asked Mrs. Arable. "He's the rat," replied Fern. "None of us like him much." "Who's us?" said Mr. Arable. "Oh, everybody in the barn cellar. Wilbur and the sheep and the lambs and the goose and the gander and the goslings and Charlotte and me." "Charlotte?" asked Mr. Arable. "Who is Charlotte?" "She's Wilbur's best friend. She's terribly clever." "What does she look like?" asked Mrs. Arable. "Well," said Fern, thoughtfully, "she has 8 legs, as all spiders do, I guess." "Charlotte is a spider?" asked Fern's mother. Fern nodded. "A big gray one. She has a web across the top of Wilbur's doorways. She catches flies and sucks their blood, and Wilbur adores her." "Does he really?" asked Mrs. Arable vaguely. She was staring at Fern with a worried expression on her face. "Oh, yes, Wilbur adores Charlotte," said Fern. "Do you know what Charlotte said when the gosling hatched?" "I haven't the faintest idea," said Mr. Arable. "Tell us." "Well, when the first gosling stuck its little head out from under the goose, I was sitting on my stool in the corner, and Charlotte was on her web. She made a speech, and she said, 'I'm sure that everyone here in the barn cellar will be gratified to learn that after 4 weeks of effort and patience on the part of the goose, she has now something to show for it.' Don't you think that was a pleasant thing for her to say?" "Yes, I do," said Mrs. Arable. "And now, Fern, it's time to get ready for Sunday school. And tell Avery to get ready. And this afternoon, you can tell me more about what goes on in Uncle Homer's barn. Aren't you spending quite a bit of time there? I mean, you go there after almost every single afternoon, don't you?" "I like it there," replied Fern. She wiped her mouth and ran upstairs. After she left the room, Mr. Arable spoke in a low voice to his wife. "I'm worried about Fern," she said. "Did you hear the way she rambled on about the animals, pretending like they talked?" Mr. Arable chuckled. "Maybe they do talk," he said. "I've sometimes wondered, at any rate. Don't worry about Fern. She's just got a lively imagination. Kids just think they hear all sorts of things." "Just the same, I do worry about her," replied Mrs. Arable. "I think I shall ask Dr. Dorian about this the next time that I see him. He loves Fern almost as much as we do, and I want him to know how weird she's acting about this pig and everything. I just don't think it's normal. You know perfectly well as I do that animals do not talk." Mr. Arable grinned. "Maybe our ears aren't as sharp as Fern's," he said.